Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. I'm back with another video and today's topic is an update to the Mark of the Beast. Last week I shared a video on the Mark of the Beast and two probable examples of what the mark of the beast may have been. The second example is the one that I lean the most towards, and I have never seen a more compelling idea for what the mark of the beast is. And I have some new information that I wanted to share on that today. So you might be wondering, if you didn't see the last video, I will link it at the end of this video. But I will try to explain it in a way that you'll also understand here. I believe that it is very possible that the mark of the beast, actually, let's read Revelation 13:16. Also, it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead. Okay, so we're looking at something on the hand or the forehead, right? And that's why you always have people coming up with ideas like barcodes or tattoos or microchips or vaccines. But I think it's very, very important. I hope that me saying that V word doesn't get my video flagged. But I think it's very important that we understand that the book of Revelation was written to a first century audience, and Jesus said multiple times in that book that these things were going to happen soon, that he was coming soon. And I do believe that we need to, believe him. I also think that then it is very important for us to remember that the mark of the beast was in the first century. So then you might be wondering, okay, then what do you think it was the mark of the beast in the first century? Well, I think it tells us right here to receive a mark on the right hand or on their forehead. And I'm going to point out right here that this was something that was actually brought to my attention by Kristen on Heretic Chick Chat. So you definitely want to check her channel out. But let's take a look at this. This is called a phylactery, also called tefillin. And this is actually from the Old Testament. Deuteronomy 6:8 says, "You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontals on your forehead." I just decided to give you some more context to that. Deuteronomy 6, verse 1, it says, and I'm going to continue reading through verse 8. "These are the commands, decrees, and laws the Lord your God directed me to teach you." You know what? Sorry. I don't really like the NIV. I'm going to go to the ESV. I'm funny that way. I usually do have the Bible Hub right next to me as I'm reading things. But yeah. Anyway, just bear with me. Starting with verse 1 again. "Now this is the commandment, the statutes, and the rules that the Lord your God commanded me to teach you, that you may do them in the land to which you are going over to possess it, that you may fear the Lord your God, you and your son's son, by keeping all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you all the days of your life, and that your days may be long. Hear therefore, O Israel, and be careful to do them, that it may go well with you, and that you may multiply greatly, as the Lord, the God of your fathers, has promised you, in a land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates." Well, okay, so I went through verse 9. So what was happening in the time period leading up to the destruction of the temple in AD 70? Because it is in that time period that you will find that the mark of the beast and all of the other prophecies about this time period had happened. What was going on here? Well, what was going on here was that we have the Old Covenant Jews who had rejected their Messiah, who were persecuting the believers, and judgment was now coming down upon them. The end, as so many people like to call it, was actually the end of the Old Covenant age. And what the destruction of the temple in AD 70 signified was the passing of the Old Covenant to the New Covenant. Things were being passed from a physical temple to a spiritual temple, from a physical national Israel to a spiritual Israel, from works of the hands to grace by faith. And so what was happening was that these apostate Israel, the ones who were persecuting the Christians at that time, they were holding on very tightly to the old covenant because they did not believe that Jesus was their Messiah. So I think that it is really significant that it tells us here. Also, it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead. And then we do have in Deuteronomy, when it is talking about the commandments in the Old Testament, the Old Covenant, when God was telling them that they should bind them as a sign on their hand and as frontlets between their eyes. Now, I have read articles that says that in this time period when this was written, it was more looked at as a spiritual sign, so that they did not they don't have any evidence in this time period when this was written and shortly after that they wore these physical phylacteries or tefillin. It was a metaphorical example. It wasn't something that they took physically. So the question is, okay, well, then how do we know that people at that time period were wearing them if it was something that was spiritual? And someone actually asked that. What the commenter before this person was saying that it was the tefillin is the mark of the beast. And the commenter actually went on to say that they were not allowed to buy and sell without wearing these phylacteries. I have not gone deeply into that as of yet. But what I can tell you is that the Christians in that time period who were not wearing these phylacteries, who were not wearing these outward appearances of these physical manifestations of the old covenant, they likely would have been ridiculed. And a lot of people probably would have refused to do business with them anyway. But I'm getting ahead of myself because the question is, were they even wearing these in that time period? We know that they are now because I just showed you a picture of people wearing them now. Well, let's see what this question says. It's nonsense moniker 1. How can we show that they used them then? I thought they were a more modern invention, but if it's true they used them in those times, that's the most plausible explanation I've ever encountered. Could you show where we can turn to confirm they were wearing their cubes back then? We can actually go to Matthew 23, verse 5. They do all their deeds to be seen by others, for they make their phylacteries broad and their fringes long. So yes, they were wearing them in Jesus's time. I found something even more, well, not more interesting, but something also interesting as I was looking this up. When I looked up when they started wearing tefillin, this is what came up for me. Religious Jewish men have worn tefillin for at least 2,000 years, with archaeological evidence dating back to the end of the Second Temple period, before 70 AD. These tefillin were found at the site of Qumran, according to the Biblical Archaeology Society. Isn't it interesting that the tefillin, the oldest tefillin that they have been able to find, the oldest physical tefillin that they have been able to find, were found around the end of the Second Temple period, before 70 AD, when all of these things would have been happening. And yes, so even Matthew, in the book of Matthew, if Jesus said that, we'll say in 30 AD, and the temple fell in 70 AD, 30 AD, sorry, not 30, yeah, 30 AD, would have also been at the end of the Second Temple period. So wouldn't it be very interesting if it was around that time that they made this transition from just thinking of them symbolically and actually started using a more physical manifestation of them? I have an article here. This is from biblicalarchaeology.org. The article is called "What Color Were Ancient Tefillin?" And I honestly, that's not what I came here for, but it has what I was looking for. So it says tefillin, commonly known as phylacteries in English, are Jewish ritual leather cases containing Bible verses written on tiny scrolls strapped on the forehead and arm during morning prayer. Still worn by religious Jews today, tefillin have roots stretching back 2,000 years into the archaeological record. Traditionally, though not exclusively worn by men, tefillin are often given as gifts once a child, typically male, reaches 13 and completes their bar or bat mitzvah. The oldest known tefillin were found at the site of Qumran, dating to the end of the Second Temple period before 70 AD. Rabbinic law requires that tefillin leather be colored black. And again, that's neither here nor there when it comes to this particular video. So yes, again, we have it being told here this was in 70 AD. One of the ancient tefillin in the laboratories of the Israel Antiquities Authority, ready to undergo testing, that yes, people were wearing around the time that the mark of the beast would have been happening. The command to tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads, found in Deuteronomy 6:8, also mentioned in Exodus 13:9 and 16, and Deuteronomy 11:18, is commonly interpreted as the source behind the tradition of wearing tefillin, although it is sometimes debated whether this directive was literal. The word tefillin itself is not found in the Hebrew Bible, and it is unclear exactly what was meant to be tied or bound to the worshipers. By the 1st century AD, okay, so that again, that's the Second Temple period. By the 1st century AD, however, many early Jews understood the command to be literal and wore tefillin during their prayers. Jesus himself addresses this practice in Matthew 23:5. The Pharisees make their phylacteries wide and the tassels on their garments long. So, if this was a relatively new practice, I'm not saying that it 100% was. It seems like that may be the case. But even if it wasn't, when a Jewish Christian, or I'm just going to even say a Christian who lived anywhere around Judea or had been around the Jews at any time, when they read this, they would have immediately known what it was talking about. Also, it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead. To me, it's very possible that these phylacteries, otherwise known as tefillin, were yet another outward sign of the apostate Israel's rejection of their Messiah. Why? Because they were looking for a Messiah who was going to come and was going to start a physical, political kingdom. That's what they were looking for. And that's not what Jesus came to do. So they rejected him. They were looking for all of these physical fulfillments when Jesus said again and again that the kingdom is spiritual. The kingdom does not come with observation. The kingdom is within you. These are all words that Jesus said. So if we are looking at this time period when there is all of this upheaval, we have the passing from the old covenant to the new. And if this wearing of the phylacteries is just another sign of the rejection of the Messiah, clinging on to the old covenant, which was very soon going to be past, going to vanish, just as the New Testament says, I believe in Hebrews. And I think that instead of looking at barcodes and jabs and tattoos and social security cards, maybe we should start looking at the Bible and seeing if the clues can come from there. That's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one down below. And if you like my work and would like to become a channel member, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well, or you can just click on it right on my channel page. And I hope you have a great day.